Yes, got it. We are live on YouTube, so I want to just go straight to my slide and present my slide. I hope you can see the slide. I hope you can see the slide. So I want to go live on also on Instagram. Okay, I'm live on Instagram. So today I just want to continue where I stopped last week. I hope you can see my slide. If you can see my slide, you can send me a yes, or you can just unmute and say yes. So I'd like to welcome people on Instagram. I want to welcome you if you are joining via Zoom, if you are joining on Instagram. So if you don't mind, just help me disable your videos. I'm stopping videos so that we'll just get started. So what I'm doing this evening is part 2 of a series that has been for me a blessing. And the more I look at this series, the more it tells me that it answers a lot of questions about our results in life as Christians. It answers a lot of questions about our results as Christians. God is a constant, but the determinant of success, if God is a constant, is a function of a lot of things that we do as Christians. So I want to just go straight. So those of you that are here, last week, this was what we did. We said attitude is a state of the mind, it's a settled way of thinking. It's your evaluations about situations and circumstances. And the psychologists defined it as a learned tendency to evaluate things. And last week, we said that all our problems stems from how we evaluate things. All your problems is how you evaluate things. So it's your evaluation that it's at the root cause of your emotional disturbance. It's your evaluations that are the root cause of your stress, your difficulties, your problems in life is at that root cause of evaluation. And we saw that as a man thinks in his heart, so he is. So your present environment is a function of your thought patterns. So what we now said last week and did last week is to look at how your evaluations will lead to conclusions. Sometimes those conclusions are wrong, but it will lead to your emotions and your decisions and will control your destiny. So let me put on my video on the Zoom. It will control your destiny. So a lot of your emotions and the decisions that you're making stems from your evaluation. Now we looked at Genesis 3:6, that when the woman saw, and we talked about what that represents, the conclusions that she made, and we found out that those conclusions were wrong. And we said conclusions can be conscious or unconscious. And this was where we stopped, that the biggest drivers of our lives are our unconscious evaluations that we are not conscious of. So we said we're going to start from there this week. And we ended with Carl John's quote that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So there are certain things that are directing our lives. Let me see, I have a text message here. Okay, yes, thank you. They are unconscious, they are driving our lives. But if you don't bring it out into consciousness, it's like somebody that is sick. There's a process working on in the person's body. Now, the person might not be aware of it. Now, when the person goes to the hospital, they run some tests. The purpose of running those tests is to make those things that are happening inside and bring it to the fore so that the doctor can treat them. And that's what we want to do in this series, bring to the fore, bring to the open some of those unconscious things that are directing people's life and they are not aware of it. Carl Jung, so we now went to the wings of the human personality. And at the heart of it is your values. At the heart of it is your values. So I want to talk about values this evening. I like what Joseph Woodcroft said. He said, every time a value is born, existence takes on a new meaning. And every time one dies, some path of that meaning passes away. So meaning in life is actually tied to your values. Every time a value is born, every time a man adopts a value, he says existence takes on a new meaning. So we can actually understand your life looking at the things that you value, the things that you place a premium on, the things that are your non-negotiable, the things that you're willing to die for. He said every time a value is born, existence takes on a new meaning. So you can understand a man's life, you can understand a woman's life, you can predict a man's life, you can predict a woman's life, looking at the things that that person values. And he said every time that value dies, some part of that meaning passes away. Wow, for me, this is one of the most important quotes that has to do with values. So what are values? Just to make this simple, in terms of values, I see your values are your Magna Carta, you know what it means, your personal constitution, your code of conduct, your compass, or your umpire and referee. Every decision that we make, actually decisions are simply about value clarifications. Every time that we are confused, if you trace it, it's simply traceable to our values and the values that we don't have. So if your values are clear, there's certain things that you will know that for you, they are not even a temptation or something to consider if your values are clear. But if your values are not clear, and that's why you begin to wonder, should I take, should I not take, should I go, should I not go? It starts by clarifying your values, because your values are like your compass. They will direct your life. It's like your referee. They will tell you, okay, should I continue playing or should I stop playing? Your personal constitution, your code of conduct. So the boundaries that determines your behaviors are shaped by your values. So that's what your values are. That's why we call them governing values. You can call them even your general overseer, your GO. They are the ones that they direct your life unconsciously. And can I say this? Everybody here listening to me have values. You have something that you place a premium on. The problem with a lot of people is that their values are not clear. So from a psychological, personal effectiveness, leadership standpoint, when we talk about values, there are two extremes. There's the means values and the ends values. The means values are the process values, and the ends values are like your final destination values. So when you talk about money, for example, is money a means or an ends value? I think for me, money is a means value. Money is something that you get for something else. So it gives you a sense of security. So security is an end value. So money is a means for giving you a sense of security, a feeling of assurance, pride, whatever you want to call it, happiness, you understand. All those values that comes as a result of having money are ends value. So money is a means value. So there's a means value, which is something that you need to work towards, and the ends value. So things like love, happiness, and the rest ends value. So I want to end this value part because there's so many things I want to teach today. That every human being must have at least 5 values. The 5 values for me that shapes and determines who you are is seen from the 10 commandments. As simple as that 10 commandment is, there's a lot of lessons in it. The first commandment is the commandment, or the first set of value has to do with the values that deals with God. Thou shalt have no other God before me, make no graven image, and thou shalt not use the name of God in vain. So the first day, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. The first four commandments has to do with God. And I say to people here, your most important value must be the value that has to do with God. God must be the number one. So it can be the value of godliness. It can be called righteousness, whatever you want to call it. But at the heart of the human being must be a value that deals with God. And if you remove God from the center of the human being, then that human being, the other things you will see are different manifestations. I tell people that every act of sin is the absence of the revelation of God. Every act of sin. Romans chapter 1 tells us that when they did not want to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them up to a reprobate mind to do those things that are not convenient. So every act of sin comes from that absence of the revelation of God. So when we put God back at the center, it governs our behaviors. There's certain things that you will not do. There's certain offers that you will not take. There's certain things that you don't even need somebody to follow you or to accompany you. Joseph said to Potiphar's wife, I fear God. So the reason why Joseph did not jump at that offer, even though his parents were not there, nobody was watching, it was just him and Potiphar's wife, because Joseph had at the center God. Every time a man takes away God from the center, you cannot predict what that behavior would be. God must be at the center of your value. It must be the most important, your number one, non-negotiable. You can't compromise it. You can't for nobody. God must be at the center. So God is number one. I said the second part has to do with something that is related to your work. The Bible says 6 days that shall work. So everybody here must have a value that is related to work. For somebody, it might be accountability. For another person, it might be diligence. For another person, it might be excellence. But there has to be a value that is related to your work. If I understand your value related to your work, I can predict your behavior. So if somebody has the value that has to do with excellence, then the kind of attitude he will bring to his work will be different from somebody who doesn't have the value of excellence relative to his work. So point number 2, it has to do with work, and you need to determine for you what that value is. For me, my value related to work is global excellence. That's for me, my value related to work. Number 3 has to do with your family. He says you should honor your father and your mother, honor your spouse, honor your marital vows. So number 3, it's your family. So the value that has to do with your family is number 3. And there's so many things you can choose: honor, respect, fidelity. There's so many things you can choose in that number 3. Number 4 has to do with others. Thou shalt not covet your neighbor's property. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. All of them put together has to do with others, and you must have a value that has to do with others. And number 5 for me is yourself. There must be something about yourself. So these are the 5 buckets. Now, after God, every other one can be rearranged. So it can be God, family, work, others, self. It can be God, family, self. Every other one can be arranged, but number 1 must be God. And for me, this is what determines the human being. Take any society where God is removed from the center. They can make progress. They can make progress academically. They can make progress financially. But take those society, you will see a lot of wickedness and evil in that society. Because if you remove God away, darkness takes that place. And once darkness takes it, the first manifestation of darkness is wickedness. The first manifestation of darkness, that was Cain killed Abel. That's the first thing we saw immediately after the sin. Apart from the fact of blame game and the rest, we started seeing wickedness, evil in the land, and bloodshed. Every time God is removed from the heart of man, that is what you see in the land. So this is the center. For you to understand a human being, you need to start by understanding the person's values. What are the things he places a premium on? Jesus said you should not love God. You cannot serve God and mammon. So God must be at the center. If money is at the center, every other thing you do will be driven by money. So I need to ask you right now, what is the center? What is the center? In the beginning, God created all. Put in another way, God at the beginning created the heavens and the earth. I think I need to improve the lighting. Give me one second. God in the beginning created the heavens and the earth. God in the beginning created the heavens and the earth. So what is at your center? What is at your beginning? What is at the foundation of your value? That's the most important thing for me. If I know that, every other thing I can predict. So I want to make progress. After that, second thing is your beliefs. Let me just ask, can you still hear me? Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes,
okay,
yes.
Yes, I hear you very well.
I hear you.
Thank you. The second is your beliefs. And from a psychological standpoint, beliefs are defined as your subjective probabilities about the attributes of something. So you see a chair, you believe that the chair is strong enough, you sit down. You don't even check whether the chair is strong enough. You just sit down. That's a subjective probability. It's the assumption that you made that chair is strong enough to carry you. Now, that's one aspect of belief. There's a second aspect, is the probability that the course of action will lead to a desired result. So if you choose, for example, integrity as one of your values, it affects your belief. You believe that with integrity you can win. If you choose excellence, you believe that if I'm excellent, or if you choose diligence, it means that you believe that the diligent hand shall bear rule, or the destiny of the diligent is with king. So that a course of action would lead to a desired result is the concept of belief. And see the issue here is that your belief sometimes can be wrong. If believe that the tree would be good for food, but that action was wrong. We know why? Because God was not at the center. And every belief that does not align with the God kind of value, it's actually a wrong set of belief. But belief is number 2. What you believe about life, what you believe about others, what you believe about situation. Number 3 are your expectations. based on your beliefs, you begin to see life in a certain manner. These are things that believe that you know that this will happen. So if I am excellent, I'll be distinguished. You understand? You expect if I'm friendly to somebody, you expect that somebody will be friendly to you. So what you expect of life, the gifts, the reward, the actions of people's behaviors based on your beliefs and your values falls under your expectations. Let's take, for example, if one of your values is punctuality, and you believe that people that are serious-minded should be punctual, you expect every other person to be punctual. You expect you will show up on time. You also expect others to show up on time. So our expectations of other people is a function of our values and our beliefs. Our expectations. And when I talk about as we continue this series and talk about emotional intelligence, issues of the heart, you'll find out that a lot of our problems stems from our expectations of other people. You expect people to show up on time. So if they don't show up on time, you start getting all worked up. It's coming from your expectation based on your beliefs and based on your values. And that brings me to number 4, because we're talking about attitude. Now, number 4 is your attitude. What I need you to see here is your attitude is like the bed of your values, your beliefs, and your expectations. Now, that how I begin to evaluate the person that came to work late is a function of my expectation of punctuality, my belief concerning punctuality, and my values. You understand that how I see that action. That's your attitude. How I see coming to work early, delivering excellence at work is a function of my value system. So let me give you an example. Somebody that doesn't have excellence in his or her value system, guess what? Will not see that excellence is important. That person will not see excellence as important. And you can shout and scream all you may. You can say from today to tomorrow, come to work early, or take your work a bit seriously. As long as the value of excellence or punctuality or diligence is not there, no amount of preaching or even reprimanding people will change that behavior, simply because at that point the person doesn't see it. The person cannot even see it or understand what you're saying, and finally it leads to action. So let me tell you this. I don't want to walk you through this, but I'll walk you through something here, especially for those on Zoom, because there's a slide that explains this. So you see how your attitude is the bed of everything, your values, your beliefs, and your expectations. So your attitude subsumes it, and your attitude now manifests in your action. So the best way to understand a man's attitude, simply just look at his actions. The best way to understand a man's value system, look at his actions. The best way to understand a man's belief system, look at his actions, because the actions for me is not the final manifestation of the person's attitude. I just want you to see from this slide is that your attitude is at the just before your action is your attitude, and below your attitude is your values, your beliefs, and your expectation. So this now says that your attitude reveals your values, your beliefs, and expectations, and determines your behaviors. This is for me very important, determines your behavior. So if you forget everything that I've said, I just want you to remember just 2 things. Number 1 is that your attitude determines your behaviors. Number 2 is that your attitude reveals something deeper. So you have somebody living with you, for example, and you're trying to correct the person, or you have a staff and you're trying to correct the person, and the person is giving you an attitude. If you drill deep down, what does that attitude, what exactly is that attitude telling you? It means that this person doesn't value correction, or value knowledge, or doesn't want to grow, or this person has a disrespectful attitude, doesn't hold you in high regard. Because if this person holds you in high regard, as a boss trying to correct a subordinate, as a father trying to correct, you know what I mean, as the landlord trying to correct somebody, that person should be able to, oh, thank you for this correction, and I take it. But if the person has something wrong in his or her attitude, that correction, the person will show you attitude, and you will see the attitude, or you will correct the person and the person will repeat the same thing the next week, and you wonder, but I want you. It's simple. That action is actually revealing something deeper, something in the attitude, something about growth, something about excellence, something about respect. That's what I want you to see. Attitude reveals and actions. Attitude determines actions and reveals something deeper, your values, your beliefs, or your expectations. I don't know. Am I communicating?
Very well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And sometimes, I asked myself, as I was thinking about this, I said to myself, there are two times when you know a man's values: during trials and during prosperity, or during pain or pleasure. So it's in the times of trials. Job, for example, cursed God and died. And Job says, no, I would not. During trials is when you know what a man's values really represent, what he will hold, what he will not die for. You understand? Number two is during pleasures and prosperity. There are people you think are humble today, they're not really humble. The reason why they appear humble is because they don't have. And so they have no choice. They are forced to be humble because of situation and circumstance. It is when they have in abundance, in plenty, that's when you know true humility. And this is what Philippians 2 says, that Jesus, he was equal to God. So in terms of honor, in terms of respect, he could have claimed it, but he made himself of no reputation and humbled himself. So it's in the times of abundance and prosperity that you truly know somebody, whether somebody is humble or not. The person is not humble until the person sees wealth, sees power, sees progress, and that's when you know whether this person is humble. Take a classic example. My time, wow. Take a classic example, and the example is that of Hagar. I call it the spirit of Hagar. Hagar was submissive to Sarah, we understand, before she became Sarah, was submissive. She was a handmaid, and she was submissive to her mistress. And Sarah was struggling with a child, and Sarah said to Abraham, please enter into my handmaid. And the scripture says, as soon as Hagar conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. These are people that you helped through life. These are people that you opened doors for. These are people that you wrote recommendations for. But as soon as they enter into wealth, as soon as they forget everything that you've done for them, and they despise. And that's what we see of the average politician in Africa. They come to you, so to speak, asking for your vote. As soon as they become president, you understand, they forget you. The true test of humility is seen in power, is seen in prosperity, is seen when you are more successful than I am. Now, if you are still humble when you are more successful, that's when I know that you are truly humble. So take David, for example. Someday we'll look at David and talk about the heart of a champion. David killed Goliath. There was the women that said Saul has killed his thousands and David is 10,000. The last verse of 1 Samuel 17, when Saul asked, who are you? Who are you? And what was David's response? David did not just say, I am the Goliath slayer. Some of us would have said, you're asking who am I? The guy that just killed Goliath. How can you be asking me that kind of question? Goliath that you people could not have killed for 40 days and I came, you're asking me who am I? Forget about any history about me. The only thing you need to know is that I just killed Goliath that you could not have killed. You couldn't kill for 40 days. And look at what David responded. David said, I am the son of your servant, Jesse the Bethlehemite. I'm not just your servant, I am the son of your servant. Yeah, and that was how David bowed before Saul. In fact, let me find that scripture. If you give me 1 minute so that I can read it. 1 Samuel 17. I don't know. Am I communicating this evening? Are you following me? Do a way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Following you, sir.
1 Samuel 17:58. And Saul said to him, whose son are you, young man? So David answered, I am the son of your servant, Jesse the Bethlehemite. This, for me, is the true test of humility. So we begin to see your values during events, especially trials and prosperity. During times of trials, that's when we know what your values really are. And during times of prosperity, that's when we know. So Jesus got to that point, he felt like giving up, but he said, nevertheless, not as I will. That's the true test of humility. In trials, I'm submissive. In prosperity, I'm still submissive. And so I want to bring this to a close because I have like 5 minutes. I say here that the attitude is the lens through which you view and understand life. So there's certain things you cannot see that do not fit into your attitude. So your attitude helps you to see and understand life. Next week, I will find a picture and show the picture here, and just to say, what can you see in this picture? And you find out that different people will see different things. So it's not The picture that determines what you see, so to speak, is your mind, the ability to interpret that picture that determines what you see. In the same vein, it's your attitude that determines what you see of life. I can put something before you, but if the attitude is wrong, you cannot see. So this is where I bring this to a close. Let me tie everything together and say this is how this model now works. So when you have an event, whether that event is money, whether the event is a meeting, is called for a certain time, whether that event is going to work, we understand work resumes, whatever that event is, whether that event is a temptation on your table, whatever that event is, you begin to evaluate that event based on your expectations, your beliefs, and your values. So you begin to evaluate that event. So for that expectations, beliefs, and values. And once you evaluate it and you think it's right, you make a decision, you express it. And I want to do something here that is so important. And I want to explain things to you about the human mind. And this is about guilt. I don't have it on my slide, but I'll explain it. This is about guilt. Now, let me talk about guilt and tell you how people resolve guilt in terms of values, behaviors, expectations, and all that. So what is guilt? A simple definition of guilt is, what would I say guilt is? Simple, is doing something that you shouldn't have done. Oh, you understand? That's a simple definition of guilt. Doing something that you feel bad about. So, or not doing something that you should have done. So sometimes we walk on the road and people ask us for help. And you just maybe you're busy, something is on your mind, and you walk past and you look back again and you feel, oh, but I should have helped that person. So although you didn't do it, you felt you should have done it. Or you did something, you spoke to somebody in a manner that you look back and said, I shouldn't have spoken to that person in this manner. So if you take that as a simple definition of guilt, you find out that there are two things in guilt. There are the action, whether positive or negative, compared to your values, what you should have done, what you shouldn't have done. So it's your values that drives that guilty feeling. So why did you feel you should have helped that person? Because in deep down, maybe compassion is one value, maybe empathy is another value, maybe giving, kindness, generosity is a value. And if you didn't help at that particular point, you feel it. So compassion. So what determines guilt is not really the action, it's the values. Follow me here because this lesson would help you. It's not really the action, it's the values, because certain people will do certain stuff and you expect them to feel remorse and they cannot feel remorse. You know why? Can somebody help me? Why do you think people will do stuff and instead of them to feel that remorse, they can feel it? Can somebody use my simple model? And explain for me. Explain. Somebody explain.
Because
anybody?
Whatever it is that's behind is not behind their values.
It's not behind their values. Thank you. So the person cannot feel that sense of guilt because there's no value that drives, that says, I actually shouldn't have done this. Why did you? There's no values. And this is where how people change. Follow me here this evening, how people change. So you have values, actions. So you do something, it's your value, that your internal barometer that tells you, did you do what was right today? Did you think that this was right? And you begin to feel guilty. So you have two options. The two options that you have is, number one, reconcile that action with your values. Reconcile that action with your values. So maybe at this point, apologize. So sorry, I shouldn't have spoken to you in that manner. Or, oh, you find the money and give the person. I'm just giving that as an example. So when you do something that is not in your value system, the first thing, your values begins to tell you that what you did is wrong. What you did is wrong. You shouldn't have done that. But why did you do this? And so you have an option to reconcile that action with your values. And once you reconcile that action with your values, that value is strengthened. It means that you want to live your life based on that values. But see what the second option. So certain people will say, okay, what I did was wrong. I apologize for it. I make the correction. Some other people will say, wow, I beg. I don't think I can continue this. As the value keeps screaming, what you did is wrong. What you did is wrong. What you did is wrong. But this is not the action of a man of integrity, and integrity is one of your values. You know what they do? Second point is what they do is that they suppress the value or they delete the value. So they take that value of integrity and throw the value away. So the first time a man decides to go out and starts a relationship that is not right, a man doesn't just start and sleeps with a woman. He starts talking. There's something in his mind that tells you what you're doing is wrong. Now he has two options: cut off that relationship and say, no, I shouldn't allow this. Or he takes that honor, fidelity, trust, whatever you want to take it, and throws it away. And once he throws it away, what he has simply done is that he has given himself permission to keep doing those actions without feeling any sense of remorse. Now, this is what the Bible talks about: people whose hearts, whose conscience has been seared with a hot iron. It's simply that you've given yourself that permission to do evil without you feeling it, because the values that would have made you feel that you are doing something wrong, you have killed it, you have destroyed it, you've taken it away. So a man cannot become a greedy person without taking the values that has to do with integrity and throwing it aside. That value must be thrown aside. And so that's why he doesn't feel that what he's doing is wrong. In fact, he justifies it. I'm not the only person. If you were in my shoes, you would have even done worse. He justifies it simply because he has taken that value and he has thrown the value away. And this is what happens to a lot of people. In order to resolve guilt that as a result of the actions that they've committed or something they shouldn't have done, they kill the values that would have given them a bit of sanity. And so every other behavior that you now see is a behavior without shame. And simply, every time somebody is acting without shame, every time somebody is acting and you're the person that is even ashamed of the person, every time you see people even lying, you see that happening today, they are lying against somebody else, and you're wondering, how can somebody get this low? It's somebody who has taken a value that would have given him a bit of sanity and thrown that value away. And this is what happens to a lot of people. And oh, my time is fast spent. Wow, I need to end. I don't know. Did I make sense this evening?
Very much, sir.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I want to say thank you for coming. Sorry, I think I've taken like 4 minutes extra. I didn't know, but I wanted you to see how people end this by showing you how people's behaviors can be explained based on this. So this was what happened to Eve. Now, a value had to be removed from Eve's heart. And that's the value, the God kind of value. And Seth was put at the center. Now, Eve now saw it was good for food for her. It was pleasant to her eyes. It's a tree that will make her wise. So now, because God has been removed from the center, how she saw life was different. And so she took the food, she ate, she gave to her husband also, because the God value had already been displaced. That's the same thing that happens. When a value is displaced, different actions are shown. Thank you very much. See, next week I'll go very spiritual and just show you from Bible. Now I've done a bit of explaining the process. For next week, I want to go deep dive into the Bible and show you people's attitude and how their attitude affects their behaviors, their life, their results, and every other thing. God bless you. Do have a great evening. See you next week, same time, 9 o'clock.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Good
Thank
night.
you,